Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's Saturday, and I hope that everybody is having a good day. I wanted to come and talk to you guys for a little while. Um, because I'm always thinking about something, so I thought I would come share with you guys what I was thinking. Before I start on talking about some information that I was pondering on about the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case, I wanted to tell y'all two other things. So, number one, I found some clips and some interviews of Portia Williams. This is from our live from yesterday of her talking about her relationship with R. Kelly. So, y'all, I remember a lot of things, but I don't always know all of the details. So, yesterday, when Wiley was reporting about Portia, he said she was barely out of her teens. Some people might consider 20s, the early 20s, barely out of their teens. I don't know. But in the interview, Portia Williams states that she was 25 with her first encounter with R. Kelly. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. Like I said, I always like, because this is stuff that I looked into or researched a long time ago, and then when I have to recollect, I might not recollect all of the details. So I was not sure whether or not, I didn't recall when I saw it back in the day about her saying something about her relationship, that she said that she had assistant investigators, but apparently she had talked to the FBI. Apparently the FBI showed up on her doorstep, and she did have conversations with the FBI regarding the investigation on those R. Kelly indictments that led to conviction. So I didn't even know that. But that is gonna make it all even more juicy when whatever happens on the episode, because apparently I guess Portia did cooperate with the authorities in that investigation. And so I don't know if that's going to lead to some type of hiccups, but in the one interview that Portia had done, she stated that the one time that she was at the house and the last time that she was at the house with R. Kelly, that she heard him in an adjacent room, and that it sounded like that a female was being physically assaulted, and that was when she decided not to ever go back there. So she wrote a book, and in her book, I cannot remember the name of the book, but in those clips that I posted, the name of the book is in there, and eventually I probably will get the book to read it. But I wasn't in no rush to read no Portia Williams book, because I really did not realize that she even talked about anything in relation to that case. And well, into her, I didn't realize that she revealed anything about her relationship with him in that book. But apparently that's where it first was presented, and then um I, like I said, I think there might be something in the book that even talks about her discussing things with the FBI. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure I got that out before I started our conversation. Um the second thing, so the other day, just V, when we were talking about Cole Allen and the shooting, and I was talking about the movie, uh, so you got Roscoe Jenkins, but it's also Johnson's Family Vacation. I was mixing up the two. So if you hear this live, I finally figured out it was Johnson's Family Vacation that Cedric and Steve Harvey was brothers on that one, and then Martin and Cedric was in Roscoe Jenkins. So now I figured out I was blending two movies together. I knew I was doing something, because once I started saying it, and then once you started giving me the clues I needed to remember, I was like, wait a minute, I think I got something mixed up. So that's what that was. So I wanted to make sure I corrected that. But those were the two movies. It was Johnson's Family Vacation, and then Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, right? So Monique was not in Johnson's Family Vacation. She was in Roscoe Jenkins. So that's the one that I was talking about. So the next thing I wanted to tell y'all about that is happening. So beginning July of 2026, y'all, the Department of Education will officially determine that a degree in education, a degree in social work, a degree in nursing, accounting, physical therapy, and several other degrees will no longer be considered a professional degree. Okay? A while back, I told y'all about this. I think it was in the beginning when McMahon was appointed and they were doing her confirmation hearing. So this was early on in the beginning of Trump's first term, those first couple of months, when she went to go get confirmed and she was being questioned. And this whole idea of making these non-degree programs was floated. And the reason why this is important is because it impacts people being able to get funding for school for these degrees. When something is considered a non-degree program, it impacts you being able to get grants, loans, all types of financial opportunities to be able to fund your degree. And it also is taking away some things from those people who already acquired those degrees. I think that it is absolutely crazy that in the Department of Education that they are going to determine that a degree in education is no longer a degree program. Now, there is a time in history where nursing was not considered a degree program. That did not come too much later. But to have a department called the Department of Education and you determine that a degree in education is no longer a professional degree is absolutely crazy. And it is sending teachers around the country in an uproar. Like they are pissed off about it. It also states something for our future educators, what they will look like. Because a lot of times these grants and these loan programs, they assist minorities in being able to even attend college. You still have situations within a lot of families where you have first generation college goers, right? And so, a lot of times, those families, in order for them to be able to pay for that experience, that education, they are getting grants, they are getting loans. And now that that is going to be impacted by what is being going to be implemented as of July of 2026, that is going to impact our students going into school for the fall semester. We have to wait and see how does that impact those kids. Are those kids going to be able to return to school? Because if they're not able to get the funding necessary, they might not even be able to return. We want to make sure that we are paying attention to whether there is going to be a decline in admissions and retention because of what we are seeing. So, but because of this change. So that's gonna be something interesting to take a look at. So I wanted to bring that to you guys and briefly talk about that. I will probably do more of a deeper look into it, just like I'm going to do a deeper look into how our voting rights have been gutted some more. Trump gutted them in the first administration, but he has done now. His administration has done more to gut our voting rights in this country. And one main thing that I have been urging people to pay attention to, in addition to the voting rights being gutted, is this birthright citizenship. Because our voting rights are only as good as our born and naturalization in this country. And when that is being challenged, then that automatically removes us out. And this is why I tell people like they don't think that there's a value in voting. There must be some value in voting for all of this effort to be put towards trying to stop certain people from being able to vote. I think that this is a trick, just like some people think it is a trick of the European or white supremacy, systems of white supremacy, to make Black people think that they are participating in the voting process. Well, I think it is a trick for people to want people of color to have a mindset that their vote doesn't count. Um, because when you trick them into that, that drops a large amount of people off the voting pool, out of the voting pool, if they believe that. And so I don't think that they need to do anything in order to try to change the numbers or alter the numbers or go in the back booth and change a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 5, because they manipulate people this way by simply making you think your vote doesn't mean anything and then you don't go to the poll. But we see all the effort in order to try to intimidate voters, in order to try to suppress votes, in order to try to take away the voting rights of people. And so to me, that says that it has to mean something somewhere. Something, somewhere, votes matter, right? And even if it's just to go down in the annals of history to give a voice to the people, to let future generations know what the people protested against by their number, if that's all that can be looked at analytically later down the line by future generations to see how the people and how their voice and their vote was against what was happening in the atmosphere, in the political atmosphere, then that's enough for me. That's enough for me. But some people don't think so. So that's another thing that we need to be paying attention to. But more importantly than us looking at how the voting rights are being stripped, we need to look at what attempts are being made to deal with the terminology of born and naturalized in this country, because it was once we were given the right to be citizens in this country by being born and naturalized. That is what gave us the right to vote. And so by them being in the Supreme Court trying to challenge those terms and challenge that language, that will completely undo and do away with all of what happened with the Civil Rights Amendment. So I urge all of us to like take a look and stay looking at that. So now on to my main subject, y'all, because I was sitting here thinking, and y'all know that I was saying to you guys when it came to the Celeste Rivas case that I am holding off on making a decision about what I think or what role may possibly Celeste's parents have played into this whole saga between her and David, and that led to her death, right? And those who have experience with my channel, they know that sometimes I'm very harsh and critical of certain parents' role in certain crimes that their children were involved in. Some parents I have more grace for. Some parents I have a whole lot more understanding for. Some parents I think took a very aggressive approach that I applaud, right? And trying to do what they can to, even if it was their grown child, get their grown child out of what they thought was a dangerous situation. Because one thing that we learned from looking at the Celeste Rivas situation is that she thought it was a good idea for her to be over here with this man. And had she not met her demise at the hands of this man and went on to be with him as an adult, there's some people who would have said, well, she's grown now, so what's the problem? Well, now look at what ends up occurring as a result of what happened to her. That could have happened later down the line, because this type of predatory behavior has an opportunity to evolve. And so I think that what happened to Celeste is the fear of any parent, whether their child is a minor or an adult, that if they get involved with somebody who they deem to be dangerous, that this could be their fate. And so this is why some parents fight harder, right? And this is why some people will never understand what the thinking is of the parent when they are doing something, even in trying to get their adult child out of a situation. Hey, Sir Miguel, how you doing? Good morning. Well, it's good afternoon for me, but good morning. I think it's probably still morning for you. Um, so this is a prime example. Yes, this is a juvenile. This was a minor, right? But the concern, the worry does not change if a parent thinks their child is in a dangerous situation. And so some parents take a more aggressive approach. Some parents, because you trying to navigate these situations is difficult. It is very difficult. And then once the child is no longer a minor, it is even more difficult trying to navigate the situation. And if you think that your child is involved with a dangerous person, right? And you can't get through to them to let them know there is danger in this situation, you will try to do what you can, right? Um, Sometimes it's nothing that you can do, right? And that's what we have seen in a lot of situations. But I think that what happened to Celeste is a prime example of why people fight to try to get their children from somebody that they deem to be dangerous. And that doesn't matter if their child is a child, a minor, or an adult. A parent, most parents are going to try to do what they can, right? Most parents are not going to do anything. And in some situations we have seen out here, it was documented in the court proceedings that the parents didn't do anything. to get their child away from a situation, right? That is facts. Um, in that report, uh, in the R. Kelly case, and that Bonjean wrote in the prior to sentencing, in her pre-sentencing report, part of her in trying to get them to lessen the amount of time for her client had to do with the fact that there was one set of parents that did absolutely nothing to try to get their minor child out of the situation. It is she has that documented, right? So she speaks specifically to things that were stated by one of the parents, but when she talks about the effort of the parents, it is plural. It is not singular, right? So and it says they did nothing. So all of the allegations that something was done, we can see in her pre-sentencing report that she wanted the judge to consider that the parents were okay with this relationship. The parents encouraged this relationship, and the parents did nothing to try to get their child out of the situation. They encouraged their minor child into the situation. This is the language that she used in those pre-sentencing documents in order to try to get less time for her client. So right now with Celeste parents, we have not yet able to determine that. But there are some things that I noticed and that made me say, okay, let's pause and give these parents some grace, especially considering the situation, because I think these parents did try to do what they thought they could do, right? And this is just my assessment and my opinion, and I'm just sharing my opinions, right? So I decided to ask ChatGPT. So Celeste Rivas, first, before I say that, Celeste Rivas Hernandez's father issued a statement, and it was put out through TMZ. And the statement wanted it to be made clear that he nor Celeste's mom have received any monies from David, um, and that they did not know to what extent she was involved in the relationship with this individual. Okay. Um, and that was all the statement said. And I think that the fact that these parents aren't speaking out as much, it might be their personal preference. But I also think it has something to do with what I have been talking about on the channel. And then in addition to what is going on in the background, they may just be quiet people, period, and not ever want to come and speak to the media. And especially because all of the things that have been placed out here in the media about them, they may never want to come out and talk to anyone. And that's perfectly within their right not to do. They are not obligated to have to come out here and talk to anyone. You don't. Okay, yeah, somebody, this is crazy. They are not obligated to have to come out here and talk to anyone about what happened, right? They are still in a process of grieving what has happened. And they are obligated to give anything to the public. But I think that we are going to find out through the investigation what steps these parents did take in order to try to stop their chronic runaway. They were dealing with a child who was a chronic runaway. And you guys know I have said over and over again, live after live on this channel, that there is a certain way that law enforcement sometimes will advise parents who are dealing with a chronic runaway. But now there is another piece to this that, from me thinking and me saying, okay, let me see if it's a way that I can, because I know I'm saying this, right? But what's my word? My word doesn't mean anything, right? So I said, okay, well, let me go ask ChatGPT, right? Because you have so many content creators right now, who are really coming down on these parents. And I think it's because they just don't understand the process, right? They just don't understand the process. And if they would just do a little bit more searching and digging, maybe they would discover that what they are seeing is absolutely plausible to happen, right? So I decided to ask ChatGPT, and I was like, and I'm going to post on my community wall the results from ChatGPT. What did ChatGPT have to say about why might law enforcement advise parents not to report their chronic runaway found, right, immediately? Okay? Because I've been telling y'all this, but hear me back. Hopefully you guys can hear me back. I know a call had come in. But like nobody's obligated to believe me. And even though I always encourage people to go and search for themselves, some people just don't go look for themselves. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. What might be a situation where law enforcement might advise parents not to report their chronic runaway as found right away, right? And so ChatGPT, I asked the question in several different variations. I only posted one though. Now I can post the other results if you guys want me to, but I only posted one because this one gave me some insight to what might be going on in this particular case. That's why I only posted that one. But I asked the question in different variations. Hey, Just V, how you doing, boo? So I'm talking about the fact that Celeste's father then came forward, right, and said that they absolutely did not receive any money. And he is saying he knew nothing about her being involved with this singer. Now, there was mentioned that the mother knew she was involved with somebody named David. She did not know all the particulars about this person. There may have been other family members, like a sibling, who sometimes those siblings, they're going to keep the sometimes the secret of their sibling, right? They're not going to tell everything, right? But basically the parents are saying, no, we never received any money. And the dad is like, I didn't even know about her being involved with this person, David, right? And that's all they released, right? And so this releasing of the statement, a lot of people felt like it was lackluster. They felt like it wasn't enough. And like I said, these parents are not required. You said, yeah, I heard that. I thought he said he never met him. Yeah, he never met him. Did he also say he knew nothing about it? So from what they are saying, from the reports, the parents knew she was involved with someone named David. But I don't know if they knew that it was this David, this singer guy, right? They knew that it was somebody named David who she was involved with. So, I don't know if they knew that he was a celebrity, so to speak. But I'm pretty sure that when the police went to his house the first time to go do that welfare check, to see if she was there, because their investigation led them to his house. The parents did not tell them that she was at his house. The investigation from the police led them to him in his house and his phone number, because when they, I guess, looked on the phone records, they got his number from the phone records, and this is how they contact him. And so sometimes when police are investigating, they won't give the specific and all of the details of where they located the child. And it could be for several reasons. One of the reasons is because of what I am about to discuss with my ChatGPT results, right? But one of them is, say the police give you information that I found your child over here, over X, Y, and Z, right? You have called the police and you say, my child is missing. They ran away. I need to find my child. And they say, okay, so they tell you to give them all of the things that they need to try to locate your child, because you may have no idea where your child is, right? You're going to give them access to be able to subpoena the phone records or whatever it is that you have, right? Whether you got to go to Apple, if they have an Apple device, in order to be able to or you're going to do all of the things to assist the police, but you really have no idea where your child is. The police are going to conduct that investigation to try to find out where your child is. they might go over to so-and-so's location and find out that your child is not there, right? But the phone record confirmed that there was some interaction. You said, do you know the date? Because in 2024, CPS went to investigate them after the anonymous tip. I'm sure the tip said he was an adult singer. Maybe, but look at how many people don't know who the hell David is, right? And that when they might not have known that part of the investigation that might be released now, right? About him being an adult singer. But I don't, like I said, I'm not sure. I know they said they didn't meet. They mentioned something about a David, but there is something very important in what's happening here of why I am almost certain these parents did all they could and they did not know what was going on. And it will give a reason as to why this missing person report was still open from 2024, from April of 2024, right? So it was said that after the first, in the brief, it said that in the brief that was released the other day, it said that in the brief that was released the other day, it said that when she went missing the first time in February of 2024, right? The parents contacted the police. The police got a hold of the phone records. The police contact David. They asked David, they had a conversation with him. He said he hadn't seen her. The police went to his house to do later that evening to do a check. She was not there. He told them that he did not know how old she was. You said, I'm saying that people in Lake Elsinore knew who he was. That's how the email was sent to his management and she went home the next day. Well, so there was an email sent, but there was also the police went there. The police went to the home. This is what it says in the brief. The brief says that there was a phone call made. Somewhere in between that, there was an email sent. But then that evening, the police showed up at his house. When the police showed up at the house, he told the police he did not know that she was a minor. Right? No, this is from the first. Well, I don't know if the email was after the second time or the first time. But the first time, this is what's in the brief from the first time she went missing. So the brief didn't outline like each time, but the brief talked about what happened the first time. So the first time she went missing, the police called David because they got a hold of the phone records. His phone number was in the phone record. They called him. He mentioned he did not know that she wasn't of age, all of this other mess. They end up at his house that evening to do a well-being check, just, I guess, to make sure she wasn't there. She wasn't there. He showed them a photo of her from a yearbook photo or something it mentioned in the brief. And then again, he reiterated that he did not know that she was underage, but he said he had not seen her. That's when she returned 2 days later. She returned she might have returned 2 days later the second time too. But I know that she returned 2 days after the police went to that house. So maybe the email came again after, in between the time the police came to the house and then those 2 days. I don't know. I don't know exactly because the email isn't placed on the timeline from the brief. So I'm not sure. But the brief outlines the phone call from law enforcement, the visit by law enforcement, and then Celeste returning back home to her parents, right? So then the parents took her phone. The brief says this. The parents took her cell phone. As a result of the parents taking her cell phone, the police basically urged David, look, she's a minor. Don't mess with her. Because at the time, maybe the police believed that David didn't know how old she really was, right? But this is what he told him. I didn't know she was a minor. I didn't know she was underage. No, she's not here. No, I haven't seen her. I don't know where she is. And then mysteriously, she reappears back home 2 days later. When she gets home, her parents take her cell phone. David goes to her school and gives $1,000 to one of her friends so that she can go purchase another phone. Okay, so the email was from February of 2024. Okay, so that would have been the first time she went missing. So yeah, so that email must have happened sometime in between law enforcement, that contact with law enforcement. So either it happened prior to law enforcement coming out, and then maybe the person from the record label or whoever who emailed him, um, the law enforcement person, maybe they contacted him first or something. I don't know. Or maybe he got contacted in the interim. Maybe law enforcement reached out to somebody from the record label and said, listen, you need to let him know if he knows where she is, send her back home, because maybe this was from after them coming out. I don't know. I think we'll find that out, because I think that's the particulars. But this is the main thing that I want to discuss about why that April report was left open, right? So like I said, I asked ChatGPT the question, why might law enforcement advise parents not to report their teen, their chronic runaway teen, found when found, right? I asked the question in different variations. It was one way I asked the question, though, that brought back something specific and let us know these parents are going to end up being cleared later on down the line, in my opinion, right? So the response that came back from ChatGPT, it mentioned that each time someone runs away or someone is missing, there has to be an update in the National Crime Information Center, right? And that each time, if you say you have somebody who's habitually running away, right, it becomes more difficult for that system to try to keep up with what you're doing, with what's happening, with like timetables and time frames, right? So law enforcement, when you have a child that is chronically running away, and this is what we've been saying on this channel that I've been trying to reiterate, law enforcement could say to the parents, listen, until we know that they're not running away no more, don't report them found, because we need to make sure that there's no confusion in the database about their whereabouts. So in case something happens, we know to be alert. That's one reason, right? It's also because of the burden it puts on the parents. But that's one. That's another reason that has to do with reporting, right? But it was something else that ChatGPT said, and I took the screenshot and I put it on my community wall so people could see. ChatGPT said that law enforcement could make the decision not to close a report of a runaway child because it is associated with an open investigation. And until that investigation is complete, the report cannot be closed out. And I think that that is going to be the key in this case for us to understand why that April report was left open. Remember that part uh of the uh special circumstances on the murder charge has to do with Celeste being a witness in an open investigation. That's what it says, right? It says that he murdered a witness in an open investigation. The fact that that missing person report was left open from April of 2024 makes her the witness in the open investigation. And it leads me to believe that law enforcement was already still trying to investigate what was going on with this child and this person that she keeps running away to. Remember that it's been reported that between April of 2024 up until she went missing of April of 2025, the police have been called out to their home 11 times. So law enforcement was well aware that she had been home even though that missing person report was still on file, even though that runaway report was not closed. I think the reason that it was not closed now, from after, and it took me to look in chat GPT to see the other reasons why law enforcement might not advise them to close it. But there may have been information from the investigation of her missing that the police and law enforcement was dealing with and investigating, that is why they couldn't close the case. Because if they closed the case, then they would close the investigation. And more than likely, that is the reason why that April 2020 report was never closed. Because law enforcement was investigating the continual cause of her running away. And like they said, when that CPS, so then that's today, that takes us back down to Just V, when you reminded me of them filing that CPS report, right? That makes even more sense, because remember when I told you that one of the things that these teens have been advised to do when their parents are trying to interfere with their virtual life activity, when their parents are trying to interfere with them being able to be delinquent, they are advised to make a claim of abuse, right? And say that something is happening to you. And then that will be a way either for you to scare your parents into lightening up on you because they feel like that something's going to happen to them, or it can be a way to get you taken out of your parents' home and in a place where you will have more freedom to do what you want to do. Because we know that under the foster care system, those kids in foster care are not being monitored. There are a lot of kids who are coerced and groomed into getting themselves placed into foster care. And I believe that report probably has something more to do, that report to CPS on the parents probably has something more to do with Celeste either trying to scare her parents to stop making these reports and calling the police every time she goes missing, or it has something to do with her potentially trying to get herself taken out of the home so that then she can be in foster care and be in a system where she can continue the same type of delinquent behavior that she does at home already. I really think that was the motive for that call into CPS against the parents. And so I think we are going to find out that the reason why that April 2024 missing child report was not closed is because it was attached to the investigation. Police had already been to David's house in February, told him leave that girl alone, told him stop letting her come over here. I think they were looking further into what is going on with these two, and they had to leave that case open. And that makes all the sense of now why in the murder charge, he has this special circumstance attached on there that says he killed the witness to an open investigation, because that April 2024 missing person report was left open. And I believe that is why we have this. Also, the information. So I'm going to go back to the pregnancy thing, right? I want to go back to that. So yesterday we talked about the fact that TMZ had released information that her death certificate had been updated. And originally there were several updates on it, but originally it read that she has this individual been pregnant within the last year, right? And it originally said no. It was definitive. No was the answer. And then once the death certificate was updated, it asked the same question. Was this individual pregnant within the last year? And it went to unknown. And remember, some people were wondering, was she pregnant at the time of her death? Was she, um, it's a possibility she could have just been lying about being pregnant or something like that, right? But they were wondering if pregnancy had something to do with a motive of why he unalived her, right? Well, I don't think she was pregnant during at the time of her death. I don't think so. It could be possible, but I don't think it was at the time of her death. Because remember, we have those dates. We have those strict dates of when the child molestation occurred, when it took place. And those dates that we have are from April of 2023 to, I'm from September of 2023 to September of 2024. We have that as like a strict date. Now, not saying that it didn't happen outside of that, but there is nothing that right now has been presented to us through evidence to confirm that any sexual activity took place between David and Celeste after September of 2024, right? We have no information to suggest that. So we know that in the brief, like I'm going back to what the brief is saying, in the brief, it says that David and Celeste were having arguments from September to November about their relationship, about him just wanting sex, and that's all, about him never wanting to do anything, about him being seen with other girls. And then there was conversation about Plan B, conversation about abortions, conversation about pregnancy. This is what the brief says. I think it is possible, and this is what I was saying yesterday, that Celeste possibly was pregnant sometime around September. And this is what started all of this agitation between the two of them. And somehow around September, and between September and November, she possibly had a termination of a pregnancy. And that is the conversation. That is why they had the conversation. And I think that that solidified the end of the relationship. David then breaks up with her in November. You said yes, but the prosecutor said that even though they broke up, it said they continue to have talk about sex, right? So I think that maybe when we don't know what that meant, right? We don't know if it meant that maybe they would talked about meeting up for sex, but they don't have anything for certain to say. That's why I said we can't. I don't know what in the brief what it means. It's a little bit ambiguous about what it means. Were they having phone sex? Were they having sex on FaceTime? Were they having talking about having sex? It doesn't say the thing that I think that makes me believe that the last time that those prosecutors can mark that they actually had sexual intercourse with one another was in September of 2023 is because that's when the charge stops. That's what makes me think that. You said I think they are only charging him with sex crimes that there is direct, right. That's what I'm saying. So maybe there was discussion about them having sex after that time on an occasion. But the prosecutors also talked about them having these arguments, and David broke up with her officially in November. So even even if they met up for sex, I don't think the prosecutors have any direct evidence, like you said, to suggest that these things actually occurred. But I think the pregnancy situation, because they talk about September and November, this Plan B, this stuff about Plan B being talked about, abortions being talked about, all that. I think that it is possible that the pregnancy termination probably happened sometime between September and November. And that this is, I don't think that they have any medical records that can confirm it, but I think that and I think that's why it's saying unknown. I think the reason that the death certificate is saying unknown and not yes to that question, the question wasn't, was she pregnant at the time of her death? The question on the death certificate is, was this individual pregnant within the year of their death? Within a year of their death. And I think that we might be able to say, we know that the pregnancy potentially took place sometime in between that September and November, period. And that this may be what caused the argument. This might be what led to the breakup. In addition to the fact that he was seeing these other women, this might be the source of her saying, you told me that we were going to be forever. You told us we were going to last forever. That we never know. David could have told her, listen, right now is not the time to have a baby. We're going to eventually have a baby. We're going to be together forever. This might be why all of which she's saying this. Because she goes to go terminate this possible pregnancy, right? With the promise that they are going to have something more down the line, and later on they will have a baby. And then now she terminates this pregnancy, and then in November he's breaking up with her, right? This is what we see. So this right now is just us speculating. But I think that the idea that that April report was never closed may have had something to do with the police investigation, not about her returning home to the parents. I think that the parents more than likely did contact police when she came back home. But it is possible that because the police were still conducting an open investigation, at that point, they had been called out 3 times. In between the April 2024 and the time that Celeste went missing for the final time in April of 2025, the police had already come out to the house 11 times. So I think that report being left open was because of the police investigation and not because the parents did not notify them that Celeste was coming home, leaving home, coming back, leaving home, coming back. I think we're going to find out, maybe even in a preliminary hearing, but we might have to wait until the actual trial, that maybe Celeste's parents did not know it wasn't closed. Maybe that was the source of the 11 times of the police being called out in between April of 2024 and April of 25. Maybe the police were conducting that investigation, and so that report from April of 2024 remained open. And that is why that special circumstance is attached to the murder of Celeste being a witness in an investigation, because that April 2024 report was never closed. You said February 19, 2024 is when the police asked him about her. That's the same day. Okay, yup, see? So I'm thinking that maybe, because the brief says that the police got David's phone number from Celeste's phone records, right? So maybe Celeste had some kind of contact with whoever this person is at the record label too. And maybe that's what prompted the police to get in contact with that person. I don't know. Or maybe since the report was made, and then I know some flyers were made about her missing, and maybe this person at the label has seen David with her. And maybe they say, hey, maybe from them seeing maybe the missing person report going out, maybe they saw a flyer or something online or something showing that girl missing and said, wait a minute, hey, we didn't see him with this girl. Let him know we need to send this girl back home. Like this is, I don't know what sparked the email, whether it was that the police communicated directly with the person who sent the email, because maybe through Celeste's phone, she had some kind of communication with this individual. Maybe the individual who sent the email only saw something issued out to the public about her being missing, and then he recognized her because he saw David with her. Because he didn't have to physically see her. They were online together. So, it might be that he might have recalled, like, hey, I saw David online with her. That girl is missing. Let me email him and tell him. So, yeah, the brief doesn't put the email in. And the reason that I think that is because that person, I think it is going to be part of the evidence. But from what they were saying, that person did not want to be named. Now, I think they did find out who it was. But that person initially didn't want to be named because they said that they were fearful of being named. So, you said the timing may just be two different pieces working. Exactly, exactly. The police may have found the number, and also someone separate sent the email. Right, right. And then, like I said, they showed up there for a welfare check. When they showed up there for the welfare check, she was not there, or at least if she was there, she wasn't visible for the police to see her. I have a feeling that she was there, but she was not where the police could openly visibly see her. And it's only but so much the police can do when they go in to search for somebody on a body attachment or for something like that. So they can't go all everywhere searching, but she probably was there when the police showed up there. um she probably had never left because they probably thought when the police called that was going to be it. They might not have thought that somebody was going to come out. So I'm almost certain that she was there when the police showed up there. Yeah, but I don't know. It's just I. This is why I'm like waiting to say, okay, I think these parents try everything. Because when we found out that the police had been to the house 11 times between April of 2024 and April of 2025, then that let me know sometimes it's still just about the police advising the parents not to report the child found, and that sometimes there are different officers coming out to the house. So if the parents don't express that the child has been located and they're just calling because they have a child that's running away or threatening to run away or whatever, the police might not go look into all that if that information isn't given to them by the parents. But if the police see that there's an open investigation attached to an old report of them being missing, then they're just documenting that they came out and that the child is doing it again. Um, and so I think that's what it was. I think that's why he got that special circumstance added. The police were already knowing after they went to that house in February, told him, leave that girl alone. She's a minor. You don't need to be messing with her. Let it go. And then she goes to run away again. And then they bring her back. And then she goes to run away for a third time. The police is already noticing some patterns and like, yeah, okay, something's going on. But by now, they don't have their cell phone because the parents have taken her cell phone. They took her cell phone in February. Now she has a cell phone that David gave when he went to the school, gave this money to Celeste's friend to give to her to go purchase this cell phone. Now, this goes into what the teacher said. Because I'm wondering if this friend is the same friend that the teacher said that Celeste and David were extorting. David. Is it the same friend? Is it the one that he went to go give the $1,000 to go and for her to purchase the cell phone? So now the teacher, even though we knew that after everything came out, that more than likely the teacher was telling the truth about what he was saying, it has been confirmed through the brief that he gave $1,000 to a friend of Celeste so that Celeste could go purchase a cell phone so that her and David could communicate. So now the problem is that when she's running away now, she doesn't have the cell phone that was issued by her parents because they took it from her. So now she has a cell phone that he now has paid for her to go get. So now the police don't necessarily have access to that phone to find out her whereabouts. They're trying to find other ways to find out where she is. And if she's not cooperating, they're going to leave that investigation open because they know it's something to that. They know they already been out there and told this boy to leave this girl alone. But if she's not cooperating, they're going to leave it open with the hopes that at some point they will get some kind of evidence to where they could do something to try to intervene with what's happening, or they will get her to cooperate at some point, one or the other. But they're not going to give out his address. So I can see the parents saying, we didn't know where to go look for her. because law enforcement cannot give his address to the parents. They cannot do that because then another crime can occur. So, like that's why they don't do that. That's why they are the intermediaries. They investigate, they stay in between because they can't. And then this is the other thing. When they went there, she wasn't there, according to their search. So it's like they not gonna give the address of somebody to the parents. They go there and then the child wasn't even found there. Even just they found him calling her. They got evidence of him calling her and having conversations with her, and maybe some evidence that they had been somewhere together. But they cannot give her parents the address to his location. So I think that there's enough here to suggest the parents tried to do what they could within their limit to deal with the situation. And like I said, a runaway teen is a tricky thing because if you are too aggressive in trying to deal with them running away, and people know what I mean by that, you could end up in jail for that. And if you aren't aggressive enough in trying to deal with them running away, you could end up in jail. And so that is a difficult situation for people to be in. And this is why I think in the end, once everything comes out, we're going to find out that Celeste's parents did the right thing. They did all of what they could do at the time to try to deal with their teen. Could have been some other things they could have done, maybe. Like, I don't know if they could have looked into trying to put her somewhere or what other resources, but maybe they just didn't know. I know sometimes law enforcement will provide parents like that with other resources. Sometimes those resources are just not that helpful. Sometimes the situation is so out of control that those resources aren't even going to help. But I think we're going to find out these parents, exactly what these parents said was the truth. There was evidence that payments were sent, but the evidence of those payments sent were payments that were made directly to Celeste, where Celeste was asking for money, and it was paid directly to her. There are suggestions that David was paying off friends and kids of Celeste, other children who knew about their relationship. That might have been places where he was paying money. But these parents are saying they didn't receive no money, they never met him, and that they had word that she was seeing somebody named David, but that they were not certain of all of the details, I guess, surrounding who this David person was. And I tend to believe that. Like I said, I think they contacted law enforcement too many times for people to say that they didn't do anything. That 11 times, leaving out the 11 times law enforcement was contacted between April of 2024 and April of 2025 does make it seem like they didn't do anything. The reason why those probably weren't logged as missing person reports is because it was probably documented in the investigation. In that open investigation from April of 2024. The calls were recorded. They probably took a report. The officer that came out probably took a report, but there was probably no new report generated for her missing because that one from April was still open. And the reason why that one from April was probably still open is because by then the police probably figured she is leaving and going to go be with this person that we went to his house and told him not to let her there anymore. She knows she's not supposed to go there anymore, but somehow they ended up together. And so they want to leave that investigation open so that they can track this situation and do the necessary things in order to try to stop this runaway. I think it was all law enforcement. It didn't have nothing to do with the parents. So when people keep saying, well, what were the parents doing between April of 2024 up until the time that she went missing and didn't come back and they didn't find her body until September, this is what they were doing. I'm pretty sure there was a call that last time, that April of 2025. And from there, they were just waiting to see what happens. And I'm going to tell you, This is the sad part. Because of the amount of time that she was running away, because we saw this, it's the same kind of thing with the Naziah Harris situation, right? Naziah Harris' grandmother reported her as a runaway. Naziah had run away before. Naziah Harris' grandmother initially didn't even report her as a running away to the police. She went to the school resource officer and reported her that she ran away. It wasn't until later that she went to the police but reported her as a runaway. A lot of times, when these kids are reported as a runaway, there is no urgency to find these kids. There's no urgency because they look at them like this is a habitual offender. They keep doing this. So more than likely, they're really not in danger. They just off all way doing what they want to do. And then they go leave and come back, right? And that's how they look at it. They're not going to be reported as an endangered runaway because there's nothing vulnerable about the situation from the way they look at it. They are looking at them as a habitual offender. They are a chronic runaway problem. And so this is why from April of 2025 to September, they probably really weren't actively looking for her. They may have occasionally been trying to go see, okay, is she with David? But they probably had whatever documentation that said that they broke up because they were already looking into stuff. They were already investigating stuff. Investigation was open. So they probably saw something that said they broke up, right? They may have even already at that point seen the messages and seen that she had gotten a Uber to his house. I'm curious to know, what did law enforcement do when or if her parents contacted them about her leaving the house again in April? What did law enforcement do? Did they go back to his house in Hollywood Hills then? That's what I'm curious to know. I'm wondering, did they go to his house in Hollywood Hills to see if she was there when she left April of 2025? And if so, I'm curious to know, because there was question, according to the brief, whether her body was inside of that house still at that time or inside of the car at that time that was parked around his house. But there are reports that suggest that people who came to his house, did they notice the smell? So I'm curious to know, did law enforcement come out to the house when did the parents report her missing in that April 2025, right? And that just get logged into the report from April 2024. And then when the April 2025 missing person, when they called, did the police officers just say, okay, this is another time we just gonna wait and see if she come back because this is just a chronic problem? Or did they look into something and did they go up there to David's house again? And if so, what did they notice? I'm curious to know if they noticed anything, right? But because there are reports that other people did notice a smell at his house and near his vehicle during the time. So I don't know at what point, because the brief doesn't give us any indication of what point Celeste's body was moved from the house to the car in between that time before she ends up in July in that final parking destination. I don't know if she was in the car all the way from May when he dismembered her body, from May 5th when he dismembered her body, or if he didn't put her in the car until he went to go move the car in July. But there are reports that people smelled something in the house, that people smelled something around the car. So I wonder, did the police go over there and did they notice anything? unusual or different? When they went there, did they go in there and look, or did they just show up at the door and say, hey man, have you seen her? And he say no, and then they keep it moving. That's what I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know, how soon did they realize something may have been more suspicious about this time Celeste went missing? Because they seem to know a lot, but I don't think they would have let this go this far as to a car being found all the way until September. So I don't know, you guys, but that's what I wanted to come and share with you guys is that I think the police left that investigation open. Left that missing person report open for the purpose of investigation. I don't think the parents were responsible for not contacting the police and letting them know that she came back home. Initially, I did think that could be the case, and that could also been something that the police could have advised the parents, because that is a possibility, because they want to make sure that the child isn't going to run away again the very next day, and then it creates some confusion in the National Crime and Information Center database about the missing person report. So a lot of times when they have a chronic runaway, that is one of the reasons why they might say, okay, let's wait a little bit so we can make sure that the child is not going to do it again, right? Immediate, we don't want to sometimes respond immediately for that reason, so that it doesn't create any confusion with our record keeping system. And then, God forbid, something happened, and then we have like a cross of information coming through the system, right? But now I'm thinking it's something more. And I think that report was left open by the police because they were investigating this situation to see what was really going on with David and Celeste, and why does she keep running away and going to his house. And I think that they saw that there was some crime being committed, and they were investigating the crime at that point. So that's what I wanted to come and talk to you guys about today. I didn't have anything else. Thank you all for coming in here. Just V and Sir Miguel for talking to me. And I will be keeping my eye out. I got some things I need to do this evening, but I will be keeping my eye out. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Peace.